Hello and welcome to the Playtime with Rufus podcast with me, Mario Radinger. Have you ever wanted to work with higher dimensional beings yourself? Then why not join my transformative Soul Journeys quantum hypnosis training? In 4 clear, easy to follow modules, you will learn how to guide deep explorations filled with clarity, insight, and guidance for others. For more information, visit thesouljourneys.com. And this is episode 14 of Playtime with Rufus, a spiritual and metaphysical podcast unlike any other. I'm your host, Mario, and I'm so glad you're here joining us again on this amazing journey of remembering. This episode marks the beginning of a new layer of exploration with Rufus, who, as you know, is speaking through my dear and incredibly gifted friend, Emily. And when I say a new layer, I mean it, because today we embark on what Rufus calls the vibrational layer. After exploring the physical, emotional, and mental aspects of the human avatar, the conversation now shifts towards something more subtle, but no less practical. By looking closely at this very important part of the human avatar, Rufus begins to unpack what vibration actually means in the context of the Earthian playtime, how it differs from emotion or mindset, and why it quietly underlies every experience we have here. Rufus breaks the vibrational layer, or VE as we end up calling it, down through concrete, practical examples. For example, we talk about sensing subtle shifts in one's environment, why certain spaces or people suddenly feel off, and how the VE layer functions as a filter that determines what reaches you and what doesn't. The conversation then moves into communication on a vibrational level, including how curses, blessings, and intentional or unintentional energetic messages work, how energy can be sent across great distances, and why people sometimes sense phone calls or encounters before they actually happen. Rufus also explains the difference between emotional charge and energetic transmission, and why clarity and perspective matter more than force when working with this layer. If you've ever sensed that something other than your thoughts or feelings is influencing your experience, this episode opens the door to understanding the subtle but constant influence of your vibrational layer in a simple and accessible way. If you're enjoying this podcast, please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe on all channels available to you so these conversations can reach as many avatars as possible. And now buckle up and enjoy the ride. This is episode 14 of Playtime with Rufus, where higher wisdom meets human curiosity. And now I would like to ask Rufus.
It's Mario.
You're here.
Yes, we are.
Thank you for being with us today.
You're very welcome.
May I ask if it is getting easier for you to do this, to enter the body the more often we call you in?
Well, depends on which aspect of us you encounter in this body. The answer could be yes or no.
Which aspect of you has the easiest time integrating?
Be the aspect of the energy called the homie. That will be matching more easily the energy of Emily's body on Earthian realm.
Is that the only reason why it is easier for this aspect, or is there another layer to this?
Let us check. It appears to us that this will be the main reason why it is more easy for this aspect of us to integrate the body of Emily. Their energy has a lot of similarities and familiarities between them, which makes the coming of this aspect of us easier than, let's say, other aspects of us, like the ones you encountered before.
Which one has the most difficult time integrating?
This will be the aspect of us that I may represent sometimes by being part of us, as you understand, probably. But from our understanding, you and Emily are referring to this aspect of us as newbies,
Mhm.
which is in fact not too far from what you may call our reality, just because this aspect of us that you are referring as newbies are indeed energies that have not been familiar yet with coming into your realm through an already occupied body in order to transmit or connect or communicate.
I see. And what's it like for you?
Well, it will be quite different depending on the day of the landing, if we may use this term, because we are energies coming, but the body or envelope or vehicle is already inhabited by an other energy, which is of Emily, and sometimes her own energies will shift or not be, let's say, vibrating at the same rate on a constant manner. And depending on the day of the landing and how her own vibration is actually resonating with the energy coming, this might be more or less easy.
Is this something she can influence in a positive way, or is there something we can do in the process to make it easier?
Well, not necessarily because it is, let's say, not difficult even for new energies. It is just not as smooth, if we may use that term, but it is not of a need of any adjustment just because we are fully aware that the energy being and this body is alive, and therefore living the earthen life is requiring shifts in energy. And we are aware that when we land in an already occupied vehicle, then we are actually dancing with this fluctuating energy, and it is okay because it will be more alarming if the energy present in a body will be stagnant and, let's say, consistently vibrating at same speed or in same manner. Do you understand?
Yes, I believe I do. Well, if there's something we can do to make it easier or more pleasant for you, let us know. We're having a great time doing this, and we want you to have a pleasant time as well.
We do. We do. We know that sometimes aspect of us may sound like it's complicated or need adjustments to use her body, but it is still very pleasant on our end as well, even if some of us are not used to this exercise, if we may use as a term, it is still a very pleasant experience. And let's say, even if it was unpleasant somehow, it will still be pleasant because it is an existing experience.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. All right, let's dive back into the material. Last time we focused heavily on the mental layer,
Yeah.
and I believe we have been doing that for quite a while. It felt as if we were concluding that part of of our agenda. Before we move on, is there anything that you believe we have not touched upon yet that is really crucial when it comes to the mental layer?
We are revising.
Mhm.
It appears to us that as long as we are solid on understanding all the different connection between at least the three layers we already mentioned and talked about, then we should be okay. Because as you said, Mario, hello, last time we did talk about the mental layers and the subdivisions that you've been mentioning and that we agreed to take upon and go with in order to let's say elaborate on the topic. So we do believe that for now at least and for the purpose of your work, it is fairly understood by you and everybody who will attend those conversations that the mental layer and the subdivision of it are dancing with each other, but also dancing with the other layers composing the avatar body.
Right.
Are we in agreement with this?
Yes.
Okay. Everything that's been mentioned prior to today is covering this topic clearly enough.
As you said last time, I believe there's always more. We could
Yeah,
always go more deeply, right, into it.
yes. But
But
as we mentioned, like putting a, let's say, how you call it, a cap, putting a cap on it would be necessary just because otherwise we can go on and on and on and we'll spend like years and even beyond on your time talking about the subject.
yes.
And
Mm.
also, for the sake of digesting information, like we mentioned, you are well trained in those topics. Emily is aware of this, but you might have people drawn to your work because they are in a need of information in order to grow and evolve themselves that will need somehow whatchamacallit, baby step or at least information that would not overwhelm them completely and will not do the reverse or opposite of what you are intended to do.
Yes. That's very important. I
Yes, it is.
completely agree. And I believe that we have discussed the mental layer in proportion to the other layers as well. So there's a good balance here.
Perfect.
Well, I was revising the bullet points that we decided upon at the beginning of this project.
Yes.
And there are 5 main bullet points we wanted to focus on. And right now we're in the second, still the different layers.
Perfect.
We've covered the physical, the emotional, now the mental. And I'm not sure whether there are other layers we need to discuss because I wrote something down here, TH. So it probably means something like etheric or
Yeah.
ethereal bodies.
Yes.
hmm Is this something that we can get into as well?
We could. We were actually thinking of maybe merging some of the bodies in order to be easier to, let's say, integrate and understand and maybe put what you call an energetical body or
Mm.
something that is not visible and that is not tangible within your intellect or your emotional, meaning basically everything else that would come into play with your body as an avatar and with this earthen realm will be attached to that energetical body, let's say, including the etherical body, of course, but it would be a broader spectrum and maybe a broader group that will allow us to give a general idea because after discussing and after, let's say, exchanging on the matter, we have a sense that maybe more expertise on metaphysical and more awareness will be needed in order to fully understand the nuances and the difference in the dynamics of any other bodies that will be present in this Earthian game and will be playing with your actual body. Talking about the 3 layer that we mentioned before, because if you're not familiar, it would not first make sense. And it will also not be a big of a difference because all the other layer will be basically, let's say, non-tangible for sake, and also not known consciously of the majority of people on Earth. If you take the human as an ensemble, correct, and you take you, Emily, and the rest of the people that are concerning us, which is the one that are going to listen to your project, right, or being part
Right.
of that project. Well, not all of that group will be aware and in touch with the spiritual or energetical dimension or vibrational dimension of self. Correct? They will be probably on the verge, or they will feel like an attraction or a calling to explore, or maybe interrogation within that. Am I just what I can see, touch, and sense, or is there another dimensional aspect of myself? So it will not be, let's say, homogeneous in terms of level of awareness and knowledge when it comes to what we call energetical or vibrational or non visible or knowingable. We don't know if it's a term, but we're going to run with it. So, do you understand what we're trying to convey here?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. So, therefore, it appeared that it would not be much needed to subdivide categories of everything else. We could assemble them in a fourth layer, right? That would be basically the layer ruled by energy, vibration, and everything else that you could start sensing exist, but for some of us or you, us being you guys, for some of the incarnated fellows in the Earthian realm, you would not be remembering yet correctly.
Okay.
So therefore, just having a bigger category will suffice for now.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly reasonable and
Okay. Because in this category, you'll see that there's already like things to be considered just because you're not playing this game alone. So it's already going to be a little tricky and maybe mind bending for some of you guys. Yeah.
yeah.
So let's talk about it, shall we?
Let's do that. And
Okay.
I
Yes.
will give you, of course, free reign to start. The first question that's already coming in is, could you please integrate in your explanation what separates, in quotation marks, of course, the emotional layer from the energetic layer?
Yes. We could. Okay. We're going to start with it. This is a fairly good question, Mario. No matter where you are on your spiritual awakening or on your awareness of energy and the vibrational world, right? Your emotional layer will be tangible somehow to you because you'll feel it. Okay. You might not completely be able to verbalize it or to understand it, but physically it would trigger a reaction within yourself that is tangible. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So this will be completely different from the fourth layer we're going to mention, because this fourth layer, if you haven't been trained or if you are not aware or at a place within your evolution in this game that allows you to somehow remember a little bit of your own existence outside this game, then it will be very difficult for you to tangibly sense it or feel it or know it exists. Do you see the difference?
Yes.
Okay. So we're talking about two non-physical, but one has a clear impact or a clear knowing of existence within the physical, and the other requires a little more mental layer bending, if we may use. Yeah.
I see.
So this part of the body that would be basically vibrational or energetical or whatever name you want to call it, but it's not part of the, well, it is part of the game, but it's not part of 3D matter per se, right? It's gonna be a body that is more attached and linked to the way everything is on our side. Does that make sense to you?
It does.
Perfect. So basically, this layer of the body will be very tricky because most of the human people are ignorant in terms of its existence. And therefore, they are living their experience and making choices, taking action, not paying any mind to it, not being aware of it, and not relying on it at all. But basically, you have a body that would be exposed continuously to everything that you encounter within your experience. Because everything being vibration on the smallest aspect of its existence, right? We're talking about maybe quantum physics or atomic kind of a scale right here. So basically, everything has a vibration. If you can agree with that, if you are familiar with this concept, then you should be able to follow what we're going to discuss about that body. If this concept alone is a little, let's say, uncertain, or you're still debating, or you're still battling it, or you're still conflicted about it, then maybe chapter will be a little more pushing your limits. Yeah.
Mhm.
But for the sake of it, let's say that everyone involved in this project will be okay to say, okay, we agree that, we can look at it this way. Okay. So everything being vibration means everything somehow is entering in resonance with each other, right? It doesn't matter if it's plants, humans, animals, objects, any emotions, even anything that exists within this realm, within this playtime, will somehow vibrate and create resonance and therefore interference, or let's say harmonious resonance with everything else. Okay. Which makes this part of your body very exposed because you will be able to unconsciously, and remember, conscious will be linked directly to your mental layer for us. So you will be unconsciously taking information and unconsciously influenced by stuff that you're not even aware are existing. And you will take this on within your enlarged body. So not within your body first, but imagine if you had an envelope, right? If you could draw a body, like you take a paper, pencil, you draw a body, right? This will be the body. Okay. Now, outside of this body, you draw something that will envelop the body, okay? Something that would be somehow bigger than the body, that would include the body within, right?
Mm.
But the body will be as smaller or would not include it. Do you follow?
Yes.
Perfect. This is the part because it is present and you would not have just the body. You will have the body plus that envelope that is not seen and that is most of the time not known. But this is constantly with your body in that game, right? It cannot be detached. It is almost glued to your body. So this envelope will be the first to kept every information. They're first exposed to everything that is going to come your way, whether it's like emotions, whether it's a vibration of action, whether it's environmental, whether it's spiritual, no matter what it is, this envelope is the capture of everything. It's almost like a filter, right? And then, and only then, once it penetrates the envelope, it could either bounce back, like let's say a trampoline, information comes in, captured by the envelope absorb it and bounce it back, okay? Or it can breach through this envelope and get into the layers of the body that is known to you consciously, meaning physical, emotional, and mental layer that we discussed prior. Is this concept okay and understood?
Yes. And I have a question.
Yes, please do.
Can you help us grasp this visually? Like, how far out does this envelope go? Like, is it just like another layer of skin, or is it maybe several feet or meters, or how can we visualize this?
It could be very thick. It really depends on what game you're playing and how you're playing it and how heavy is the veil of forgiveness, right? So depending on that, your what would be a good name for it? We're going to call it energetical or vibrational. We're going to call it vibrational envelope, right? Because it will envelope pretty much everything. So let's say VE, their vibrational envelope. Yeah, that has a good hymn to it. So let's say your VE, right, will be of different thickness. And even for the same avatar, let's say for the same player coming into Earth in playtime and having this experience, their VE would fluctuates within their experience. So it's not something that will be of one thickness your entire time on Earth. It's something that will be able to evolve as well with you and thicken or thinner, but it will still be present, right?
Mhm.
You have one.
Okay.
You cannot have none. You have one. But then you can have a thin one, a medium one, a thick one, a super thick one. It really depends on how you play your game and how you are consciously linked to your bigger self or to your other side, outside of this realm. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does. I assume that the bigger the connection to the player, the thicker the envelope?
Yes and no.
Yes or no?
Yes and no. The bigger the connection with the player, the thicker. Yes and no. Because remember, you have interaction with each other, correct? So you can also take on somehow vibrational sent to you by other human being or other species being in that realm, and somehow would just merge or being, let's say, embraced by this aspect of yourself that will thicken it a little bit, but it doesn't mean that you have a stronger connection to your player self. Does that make sense to you? Can you understand that?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, let us warn you, this might be the hardest layer for us to explain. It's the more obvious to us, but at the same time, wording it and bringing it to the conscious aspect of human will be a little trickier than the other just because its existence is not obvious to you guys.
So it's the most obvious to you and the least obvious to us.
Yes, because we embody it, figuratively speaking, of course, we embody it. We are vibrations. We talk vibrations. We breathe, if we can use that picture of vibrations. We exist vibration, right? So this is very obvious to us and very present in our side. But to you guys, even if you are exactly this, it is not as obvious because the playtime you're in right now has design and rules that are based on tangible, materialistic, 3D matter, 4D matter if we extend it, but you understand the differences, right?
Right.
Okay. And sometimes something that is obvious to you in order to be discussed with someone that has a completely different perspective on it and knowing of it might be tricky because you would want to push an idea that is so easy, but then you need to take in consideration that the other one receiving the information have no clue what you're talking about because they are not living it on a conscious matter. Okay. So therefore, we apologize as we might need to maybe rephrase and rephrase again or use more illustration or example or answer more questions that you may have, but we will try to do our best in conveying this aspect as simply as we can. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. So, to answer your question, if let's say a player remembers, right, strongly, it will somehow build up this aspect, this VE layer of their avatar within the game. Yes. But also, it could thin just as much as it thicken it because since they are aware of more, they are also subject and vulnerable to more. Does that make sense to you?
Believe I can follow.
Okay. So therefore, when your question was like, is the thickness of it linked? It's yes and no, because you can have a thicker VE layer if you are strongly linked to yourself as a player, but it can get thinner very quick as well because you're strongly linked to yourself as a player. Or if you're not strongly linked, it can thicken because of your interaction and conscious interaction with the rest of the game. Does that make sense?
Well, we'll go with it for now. I'm sure we'll understand more as time goes by.
Okay. How can we do that? Okay, can we state the fact that no one here on Earth is playing this game alone?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. This is a very good point to start with. Because no one here on Earth is playing this game alone and everything is vibration, there is a constant exchange, vibrationally speaking, between everything in this game. Can we run with it?
Yes.
Okay. And because somehow the game is a game, and the game needs a player, and the player exists outside of the game and is linked to the avatar within the game, there's also an exchange of vibration this way going on, correct?
Right. Right.
Okay. So basically, you can see how this VE layer will fluctuate, being influenced by everything that is within it. So the three other layers of the avatar, right? The emotional, physical, and mental, that will be, let's say, more or less conscious. The avatar will be more or less conscious of them. It will be influenced by the rest of the game, and it will be influenced by the outsiders of the game.
Right.
Perfect. Okay. So then you could see how this layer somehow would be the first one to capture any information either sent your way,
Mm.
either existing where you at the moment.
Hmm.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you capture an information, sometimes this information is not even reaching the known layers of your avatar, meaning the three first ones. Sometimes it's just being sent right back. And this is why we were mentioning trampoline effects. It's sent right back out. It's not piercing it. It's not being received and accepted, or it's not strong enough to go through that VE layer of your, and you can send it right back. Okay.
Yes, but I want to ask, what's the deciding factor whether something is being accepted or rejected by this layer?
The deciding factor will be, is there a match vibrationally speaking? Is the vibration sent to you, let's say, intense enough that your own vibrational VE layer, your own vibrational aspect, has no choice but to accept it? Or are you vibrating intensively enough that this, if you do not wish to accept it, could be sent back because your VE will be stronger than what is sent? Is it okay so far?
Yes, I believe so. I assume
Okay.
all of this is happening on a subconscious level.
Yes, yes. Oh, okay. We'll talk about
Okay.
later. Okay. From now on, thank you for mentioning everything we're going to talk about. You have no freaking clue that it's happening. Yeah, pretty
Okay.
much. This is happening in a clueless way, but it is happening still. So now, if you send this back, then you would maybe be shaken, not knowingly a little bit, because it will affect for a moment, let's say you VE layered, but it will be pushed back and the information will not go through. Therefore, you will be unchanged somehow. You will be changed vibrationally for a little bit, just the time you can process the info and send it right back if it's not accepted. Yes?
Mm. Okay. Yes.
Okay. Now, other cases, if what you're capting, what your VE layer is capting is strong enough or intense enough that even if your VE don't want it, it will breach it. Not only you will be affected on the vibrational aspect of yourself, but the signal will be so strong that it will also pierce it. Imagine like if you put a needle in something, right? It will pierce that layer of you and it will go and then trigger other layer as well.
Right.
So then what you received, what your first you, which will be the VE layer, will sense and that you would not be aware of, if it's been too strong or if it's been lingering for too long, it will then affect your known layered. This is why sometimes if you are, let's say, in a situation that you have no clue is toxic for you, we're going to use this one because usually humans really understand when it comes to damaging themselves. Yeah. This is good example that everyone knows because nobody likes it consciously, right? Unless this is something you actually do like. But for the sake of it, let's say that you're in a situation that is toxic for you, but at first you have no clue it's toxic for you, right? You would understand the toxicity, know it, and consciously be aware of it if the VE layer has been pierced. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So meaning that somehow you have like a protective self outside of what you think is yourself. It is still part of yourself. It is functioning as a captor. So if it's pierced, let's say you stay in a situation, vibrations are being sent to your VE later. vibrations that are strong, very strong, and too strong for your VE layer to handle on its own, right? To the point that it's going to bridge the VE layer because maybe since you're regulated with time, you spend too much time not feeling or not being aware of what was going on around you, creating that breach in the VE layer. Because time, let's say it's a danger to the VE layer somehow, right?
Hmm.
Because it would amplify whatever is sent as an information, right, to the V layer. Because you have time, if it's sent just like pew, okay, that's it. But if it's pew, 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 on the
Ah,
longevity or on the time that is like longer,
yeah.
you could see how at one point your VE layer be fuck off, I'm tired. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So then you would breach it. And then this is when you'll sense it. You would feel or know or think or see on your body as a repercussion. And you would, at this point, at this moment in your earthian life, think, oh, this is happening to me right now. Might in fact have been happening to you for a long time, except it was only concerning and it was only reaching your VE layer. And therefore, you did not make any changes because you were unaware of the consequences that specific situation were having on you. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Okay. So this will be kind of how this VE will function. Now, the more you are remembering and accepting that you're not just the known layers, the more you're understanding that everything is vibrating and therefore everything is influencing each other and therefore everything is actually shaping your game. And the more you remember that you are also existing outside of this game, the more you are becoming sensitive knowingly to what your VE layer is receiving.
I see.
Yes,
Yeah.
which could be very helpful in a way because if you are trained or if you develop or if you're evolving to the point that you are now able to sense your vibrational self and therefore your VE layer, then when you're in the situation, the exact same situation we just mentioned, for
Mhm.
example, and your VE is receiving the info, the vibrational info that is actually conflictual with it and that is going to start breaching it, you will feel it or you will sense it or you will in your guts have a feeling or knowing that something is not quite right in this situation. You would not have physical symptoms. You would not have mental clarity on it. You would not have emotional like symptoms either, but for some reason, you would have a knowing that something is not right. It's not doing anything for you the way you want to play your game, right?
Right.
So when this happened, then instinctively, because remember, your instincts are linked to your outsider, so to the player, right? That is
Mhm.
outside of this realm. Your intuition is the inner link between the two. So instinctively, you would want to act and probably remove yourself from a situation or operate changes that will make you somehow experience a different situation, and therefore the breach that was going on in your VE layer would not attain the other layers of you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So it's almost like a you could see it as a shield, right?
Right.
So the VE could be a shield, right? If you look at it this way. And it could be also like a captor, like an antenna. Yeah, something that would basically, oh, I feel it. Okay, let's deal with it if we can. Oh, might as well send it to the next layer. So maybe this guy inside will understand there is something going on.
Mm.
Yes.
Yes.
So it's almost like a relay because what you're supposed to be doing within this game is like, as we say, gather information, take the information, integrate, digest, and put them back out, right? And this is how you play this game. But before the information reach you, like really in a way that as a human, you cannot escape it, that you are fully understanding the information that is coming to you, then you have different layers, like an onion, or different, let's say, strats of yourself, right?
Mhm.
That will be touched one after the other. And therefore, the first one to go up front and to be exposed to information, it will be your VE layer. But it's also the one that will have the least conscious impact on you because you are not fully aware of its existence. And therefore, sometimes because you're not listening to it, you're not listening to this aspect of you telling you, hey, I'm receiving information. Please take in, digest, integrate, and eventually send it right back. Then the info needs to go and talk to you on a loudly manner. So it will get to the other layers.
Right. Yeah.
Is it a concept that you think it's verbalized in a way that is understandable?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Like the image that pops up is like you're a CEO or like an artist, you know, you do your job and you have like this assistant or secretary that's kind of catching all the inquiries and messages that come in to your office and making like a pre-selection of what is actually presented to you to deal with.
Yes, like a filter.
Yeah, like a
Yes.
filter.
It will serve as a filter, but it will also serve as a shield, just like your
Mhm.
assistant, because the call of an
Mhm.
angry avatar to the assistant will be the one attacked by it,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay. Then either the assistant has the capacity to bounce back and to answer that in a strongly manner that the one on the phone will back off. Either the assistant cannot do this, and the one on the phone will require to speak to a bot,
Right.
right? It's actually a very good picture. Good job.
Thanks.
This is exactly what's happening. So this is why the VE layer is it's definitely your friend somehow because it's taking so much shit for you that you have no idea. But also, when you get breached, this is when you need to acknowledge, you need to be shaken regarding a situation or a message, or the experience needs to become more real to you,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
And sometimes, because we mentioned that its thickness can fluctuate, sometimes in the course of a life, right, the same avatar in the same exact situation, sometimes will be triggered knowingly, whether it's good or bad, but it will be triggered knowingly by the given situation faster than another time. It will be triggered knowingly way slower by the same situation, just because at this moment the thickness of the VE layer, or maybe let's say the fatigue of it, if we can present that way, will be different. So therefore, shield effects will be a little less powerful at certain moment of your life and a little more powerful at others. Just like your assistant that is tired that day because, didn't get much sleep. The phone call comes, I can deal with it right now, boss. But the day they were rested, they're good breakfast, they're on fire, phone call, let me tell you, and handle it like a G, yeah?
Right.
Okay, so this is also why fluctuation of the VE can be sensed by the avatar.
Mhm.
If the avatar is at the place in this earthian realm, in this design, that it's understanding all the different layer and is aware of how to receive the signal before they even become tangible to them.
Makes sense. Yeah. No questions.
No question. Okay. Somehow it's clear enough.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Now, do you also understand that because everything is vibration and because all the other layers are included in this layer, you
Mhm.
remember
Right.
Russian doll or a strat, onion, how you want to picture it?
Yeah.
Because everything is vibration and everything is connected, you're constantly exposed to information. Constantly. That means your VE is never at rest. That means you are never at rest, even when you think you are.
Mhm. Yeah.
And this is important. And this is important. Why? Because sometimes people feel like, oh, okay, well, I don't want to be exposed. I don't want to be put at risk. I don't want to feel this way or this way or this way. I don't want to think. I don't want to do this. So I'm going to isolate myself. I'm going to be in this place and I'm going to stay with this place and yada, yada, yada. But because everything is vibrating, even your chair, even your mattress, even the plants next to you, everything, you cannot hide in this game from information.
Mhm.
You are constantly, constantly loaded with it. If you're not loaded with it, it's because you are not in the game. Yes. Even when you are trying not to receive it, you will receive. And because you're receiving, you will automatically send back. Because remember, we should draw one day a diagram that will be more simple. But you get the information, you put it within yourself, and self talking a big S, all the layers, right? You take everything, you digest it, you integrate it, and then automatically it goes right back. You cannot keep it inside. It's not possible. Even if consciously you think you are. Let's say sometimes we are aware that this is what a human likes to do. Oh, I'm taking it all in. Yes, you're taking it all in. And I'm sitting it with it and I'm keeping it inside and I'm locking it inside and I'm never going to let it show. Well, guess what? You can't. It shows one way or another, whether it's consciously or not, whether the other in front of you are aware of what they're receiving or not. You cannot trap information received within yourself. It has to come back out. It's an exchange, it's in motion. It is not at all stagnant. Even when you can use that word, oh, I feel like I'm stuck. I feel like I'm not moving. I feel like I'm not evolving. I feel like I'm stagnating. This is a misconception. This is actually not possible for an avatar, for an earthian to be still. If you are, that means you're not existing anymore in that playtime.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Does this also mean that on the VE level, there are no secrets, nothing that can be hidden basically from each other?
Yeah, basically. Because vibration don't lie. Vibration don't
Mhm.
cheat. Vibration is all there is, correct? And when you are all there is, then you know and you are aware of everything. It's just a matter of can you now transmit all that information to that avatar knowingly. And this is the complication when you have, let's say, self experiencing through aspect of self, right? If you're okay with this philosophy, the oneness philosophy, right? That everything that there is, let's say, is this one. We're not going to give it a name
Right.
because it's been interpreted with different name, and this is perfectly fine. But as long as this concept can be understood, the oneness of everything that exists, everything that there is, and then whoever is listening can put a name on it if they need to, if it's
Mhm.
reassuring, that's perfectly fine. But if you understand and you agree with this philosophy, oneness exists, then oneness wants to experience self in different matter, then oneness decided to send part of oneness into experimentation, into experiences, including the one called Earthian playtime, correct? Then you will understand that the VE layer, which is composed on vibrations, just like oneness, is able to understand and see at least everything that is happening within the game as an how do you call that, omniconscious, or that basically knows, but remember, we're talking about vibration, not the avatar, knows everything that is in the game.
Be aware.
Omni-aware, thank you. But Avatar is not vibrations pure. It is, but
Mm.
it has also those different aspects of the avatar body that includes the different layers that requires a consciousness to play it. And we're talking about consciousness as in our version of consciousness, not the being that you call consciousness. This aspect is not knowing everything, is not aware of everything because of the veil of forgiveness, remember? But if there were no veil of forgiveness and everything that was vibration was recognized by the avatar as is, then the avatar will be also omni aware.
Right.
Do you understand?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay. So then to answer your question, the VE layer is somehow aware of everything in the game because it's the captor of vibration. So it understands vibration.
Is it enough to form the intention to have a clearer communication with one's VE? Or what is necessary for someone who says, okay, I want to integrate my VE consciously, in quotation marks, or more consciously into my existence here in this playtime? How would one go about that?
That's a very good question. Well, first of all, the starting point will be to accept that philosophy
Hmm.
that everything within this game is vibration. If you accept that philosophy, that means you're already potentially accepting that the VE is there. Once you consciously accept that the VE is there, you're allowing its existence and you're allowing yourself to know of its existence. This is okay?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the biggest step to take. I know everything is vibration. Therefore, I'm aware I'm vibration. Therefore, I'm aware I have a VE layer within myself. Therefore, I am now accepting its existence. And because I consciously accept it, I am going to be more sensitive to its shift.
Right.
Now, because I'm being more sensitive to its shift, just because I accepted it existed, I'm gonna start to pay more attention to when I automatically use a different layer of myself, emotional, mental, or physical, to sense, know, or feel, even if I don't understand and I'm not able to explain why or to know what it is, or to see it, or to anything, I am somehow aware that there is a shift in the situation, that something somehow is a little different. And this is where it gets so tricky to explain with words. Um, basically, a thin signal that you don't know where it come from. You don't know how it is expressed. You don't know if you know, but somehow you acknowledge that it's there. Do you understand? Or
Is there a connection to what we call clairsentience or claircognizance?
yes, probably. Yeah, that's the word that we could put on this. Basically, you're going to a place, right? You're going to a room that is full of people, okay? And coming to this room, you're yourself, okay? You get there, you have your upbringing up to this moment. At first, when you open the door, you were in this awareness of beingness, being a certain way, right? 10 minutes, 15 minutes in, without knowing why, nothing happened. Um, you did not and get any conscious news or any conversation to trigger. You did not eat anything. Nothing really happened, right? That you can consciously name or you can emotionally or whatever within those layers be aware of. But somehow, between the time you walked in that room and 15 minutes, because remember time and VE, right?
Right.
So within those 15 minutes, you are aware that something is different. You don't know why. You cannot explain it. You are not even sure you can explain to yourself. You're not even sure if you feel different, if you know it's different, if your sense different. You have no clue where it's coming from. But if you're relying on your subtle perception, you are aware of a difference. Yes? Then this will be you sensing the shift or the vibrational activities going on in your VE before it reaches completely your other layers.
Mhm.
To get to that point, like we said, once you acknowledge its existence, you already start a job instantly. So you will be more inclined to have that awareness of difference because you're telling your mental layer, your physical and your emotions, and getting in touch with your intuition. So you're putting all this together and telling them basically look out for anything different because now we are all aware that there is another layer. Yeah. So now all of this will be more alert. So now all of you will be more alert. So because you are a vibration, every time there is a shift in the vibrational layer, you will somehow be aware of it. Now, it could be at first on the verge of breaching into other layers, or because it would have breached already just a teeny tiny, tiny bit. You'll be aware, okay, good. You address it, you do what you need to be doing in order to make sure that you're not bothered in your game by this vibration part of yourself. But the more you do that, the more you're able to catch it further in from your actual 3 layers that we mentioned before.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes. So
It's
it,
almost like fine tuning. It's almost like fine tuning your awareness of something shifting, even if you cannot explain, because this is also something that is difficult for an avatar. Avatar likes to know consciously and understand, remember the ego part and all this stuff. Even if none of this is able to make real sense to you, you cannot ignore
mhm,
that you're somehow sensing a shift or a difference in the atmosphere. Usually human use that. They use like, oh, something's in the air, right?
right. Yeah.
Love is in the air.
Mm,
Oh, something's not quite feeling right in here. Like something's up.
yeah.
All of these things because VE has been breached.
Mm,
Probably. We are not aware of an avatar being able to, as soon as the info hits VE, know it right away. Because remember, VE englobe different aspect of VE also. So we are not aware of an avatar being, oh, information reaching VE, I'm aware. Just because the avatar will not be able to play the game. Because remember, everything is vibration in this game. Constant information, nonstop. If you were completely in tune and completely aware of what VE was receiving, it will be a nonstop situation. You could not operate in this game, right? So you will have to somehow sense it or being able to capture it once VE is already shifted and bridged, probably. Yeah.
mhm,
But you could fine tune yourself and you can train yourself to feel or know or sense or get the signal, get the message, get the memo, if we may say, within a certain range of the bridge. So if at first you're not able to get it within VE bridge and you'll get it once he gets into your other layers,
mhm,
okay, that's fine. Now you acknowledge VE existed, you're paying more attention, you're fine tuning yourself. The more you go into that game, you're realizing, oh, I know something is different. I can feel it. I'm using even expression as, oh, it's up in the air. I can feel something coming. All of these is basically something that you don't know, but something that your VE will know. So it's telling you, okay, there's a shift going on vibrationally. You can sense it. So now, if you are not able to get it as soon as it hits VE, when you were here, like let's say this is the envelope, right? This side of it is your physical body that includes the emotional, the
right.
physical, and the mental, right?
Like the
So
boundary between the.
yes, this is the boundary between the known bodies of yours, the known layers, and the not really known layers. So if the signal breaks in, right? The signal is right here. You don't get it. Right here, you don't get it. It breaches. Now you got it. Okay, next time, same signal or whatever. It comes, it comes, it comes, it comes. As soon as it hits this, you get it.
Mm,
Now, next time it comes, it comes, it comes, it comes. Oh, it's
right.
getting closer. I get it. You know what we're talking about?
Yes. It's like
Okay,
your field of awareness is expanding. So you
exactly.
so you catch something incoming earlier.
Yes, exactly. This is the layer within the layer. We don't want to get into this, but basically there's an aspect of VE that is working extremely close to the rest of the tree, right?
Mm,
And this is almost like you're expanding this.
mm,
You're expanding your mailbox, right?
right.
Let's put it this way. So before you had to really like deliver to the house, put it under the door, boom, get in. Now you're expanding your mailbox. So you have a mailbox outside the door. So it's not getting in your house. It's
Mhm,
getting into your mailbox. If the mailbox is bigger and bigger, then you get the picture. So basically, this is what you can do. If you are looking at training yourself or attaining the point where you can sense as soon as the info reach VE, forget it.
not
Forget it.
possible.
Forget it. Because this game is not made like this, is not playable like this. And if you want to reach that point, you have to get the heck out of this game and
Mhm,
go back to the other side, right?
yeah. There were two things that came up. One of them, I guess, was another metaphor or analogy that most people, when like a mosquito is landing on their skin, they don't sense it. it's undetected. But
Yes.
but most people would sense a fly or a bee landing on their skin.
Yeah.
And so by training, one would become able to sense a mosquito lying on landing on the skin.
Yes. This is a very good example, Mario. This is exactly it. You get it. This is exactly it.
Okay. And the second thing was a question actually. What is the next layer, if that's an appropriate term? Once the boundary is bridged, which layer will first catch the incoming?
Depending on the information.
Ah, okay.
Remember, like when we say everything is vibrational, we say everything, but some information will trigger one layer more easily than another,
Ah,
right?
okay. Okay.
So it would depend. Let's say, okay, like we're gonna take very rational, very down to earth example. We're gonna try it. Okay, you're on a path, you're running, right? You're on the road, you're running. On this road, there is a rock. Okay, your VE will feel the presence of the rock because
Mhm.
remember, information vibrational. It will sense the vibration. It will know the rock is here. Okay,
Right.
but you will not get the memo that the rock is here. So you're pretty much probably hit the rock at one point and either fall or like bang your toe in it or something will happen. Then the bridge will happen on a physical level right away because the information was like physical.
Physical. Yeah.
Yeah, physical. Okay. So boom, you get hurt. The physical get hurt, then it will trigger, like the mental and the emotional because now you will be, shit, it hurts. And now you'll be really feeling the hurts. Yeah. Okay. But then if it's something that is sense, that is emotional, let's say um you are in a conversation and for some reason the person in front of you that you don't recognize being abusive is actually sending you subliminal that are very much attacking, okay?
Mhm.
And because you're loving that person and you don't want to look at it this way, you're like, it's okay, I can take it. This is not bad. This is just like, blah, 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 blah. To the point that the signal would bridge VE because the vibrational aspect of it will be very, very heavy and it will be sent right into your emotional aspect. And then your emotional aspect will understand what vibrationally you were being sent that you may have felt, but somehow your mental or your emotional layer as well would be saying, no, 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 we're not feeling this. This is not true. This is not happening. And because you are basically not listening to the message of the VE, then it would bridge and it will bridge so hard that it will hit you emotionally first.
Right.
Boom. Then, because we established already different link, depending on the intensity of the emotion, it could trigger also the mental layer and it could also trigger the physical layer.
Okay.
So depending on the nature of the information and what the intention of the vibration is, what the information is, depending on what is sent to you, depending on what is captured by your VE, it would be sent somehow as a first known signal to different layer of yourself.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you for explaining.
Well, but remember they are linked.
Yes.
So even if one will receive it firsthand, most of the time it will have repercussion.
Right. What just came up while you were explaining that was the concept of cursing or a curse that we have here in this realm. Could you explain this in this framework?
Yes. And we would like to talk about something because you say cursing, and this is actually very important. Words, so verbalization, because this is what words is. Right? And when they say words are heavy, we're not talking about words as in combination of letter are heavy. We're talking about words as the intention they carry. Because remember, in that realm, you use words to communicate concepts, so to communicate intention, to communicate information, right?
Right.
If it was not with the intention of communicating anything, words will mean nothing, right? For us, we are using words that we don't necessarily recognize of any value, but because we know what you put behind them, what reference they will have to you, then we will use those words to convey what we're trying to convey. Does that make sense?
Yes. It does.
Okay, so the vibrational heaviness is not hidden within the letters, but is hidden within the reference the word is referring to, the intention or the information that the word is referring to. We say that because, let's say, if you speak one language, right?
Yeah.
And you use what you call curse word in that language, you would know because you understand and because you know this association of letter is making that word that will refer to this signification that will carry basically this information and therefore this vibration, right?
Hmm.
You would know that if you use a well, for the sake of it, fuck, okay? This will have a certain impact, okay? But if you use curse words in another language that you do not speak and that you have no idea is a curse word, and that to your ears, when pronounced, it sounds like a lullaby or like a flower or like something delicious, right? Then you will use that word within your frame of reference that would not at all be carrying the same vibration. Do you understand?
I believe so. It sounds as if there needs to be an agreement, basically, between the one shooting it out and the one receiving it about the meaning of it. And if there's no agreement, it doesn't have any effect, or not the effect that was
Not the
intended.
effect, yeah, not the effect expected.
Okay.
And it happens a lot in kids. Sometimes kids
Mm.
love curse words, not because they understand what it means or what it refers to or what it carries, but because to them it's so fun because normally they are not supposed to say it. It's only mommy and daddy that can use it, and therefore it's a game.
Right.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So the vibration carried by words is strongly linked to the definition and to what it means to the person sending the info and the one receiving it. Yes?
Yes.
So therefore, yes, when we're talking about how cursing words could affect or how words could affect, of course, but it's not necessarily the letters or the association of letters that you call words, is basically the reference that is behind it or the common understanding of the definition and what is put within this envelope. So if you heard all day long, you're incapable, you're useless, you're nothing, you're all this stuff, right?
Mhm.
You would hear it, but you would not hear it just for the letter. You would hear it because you would feel the intention, you would hear the intention, you would know what it refers to, and you would understand what the person sending the information is trying to convey,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And this, because it carries a vibration that will be definitely intense enough to breach, then it will have an impact on you. But take something that speaks Italian, come in front of you, and tell you those words, the same words, without having any clue what it means, and just give him a prop. Let's say, okay, you're talking to your favorite being in the words, and you're using those words. They will tell it to you, first of all, with a delightful accent, then with a very loving way that is going to be super light. And therefore, the vibrational impact on your VE will be completely different because VE don't recognize words, VE recognize vibration.
Right.
Brain, mental layer, recognize word.
Okay.
S- And we're going to go further in that example.
Yeah.
Let's say Emily is Italian. You are of English speaking, right? And she comes and she tells you like, uh, we don't know how to do a pleasant voice right now, but she's gonna basically tell you, asshole or loser or stuff like this.
Hmm.
And for her, she will be telling you, "Oh, I love you," or "You're so nice," or stuff like this. She will have no idea that it means this, right? Okay. And then she will be super pleased with what she just told you because for her, she was conveying a message of love. Yes?
Yeah.
Now, somebody comes and tell her, you just call him an asshole. You just call him a loser. She's gonna feel so bad. She's gonna be mortified. She's gonna feel so bad about herself. She's gonna be so sad because she will understand now what she conveyed to you, but that was not at all what she was trying to convey. Does that make sense?
Yes. It
Okay.
does.
So this is when mental layer comes in because VE that she was sending, loving, had no idea what the words was meaning. Once somebody told her, on her mental layer, intellectually, this means this and this and this, it completely shifted what the vibration of those words are for her. Yes. So now when she's going to use those words again, she would not use them with the same vibration as she just used with you.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense.
Okay. So VE vibration. Mental layer definitely understand words.
Okay. Let's stick with this example. And
Yes.
let's say she said those words to me, and I, at the time when she said them the first time, I didn't know the words either. So they basically didn't have any negative effect on me.
Yes.
But if at the time I knew what these words mean, it would have had an effect on me based on my mental layers understanding. Correct?
Yeah. Correct.
Okay.
Or a third option could be you would understand those words, but you're able to sense somehow the vibration she's telling them to you. This could have amused you, and you could have received them with the kind of equally matched frequency that she was sending, just because you realize at the moment, oh, she's trying to be lovely and she doesn't know. And therefore, it's like endearing and touching,
Right.
but just in order to protect her, I'm still gonna tell her what it truly means. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So you could have different reaction to the same situation, but what would be different is your ability to recognize vibrations above wording and your ability to receive the information the way it was given because you can perceive how it's given, or you're just receiving what being sent with your mental interpretation of it, which is actually also valuable because definition of these words for you is this.
Right.
So this is why it's so tricky, because the information is given one way and could be received anyway. It's not because you're carrying a vibration that your vibrational is going to be received the way you sent it. It will depend on the state of being the other avatar is. And this is also why VE somehow have a tricky role and a heavy one and can be easily breached as well, because what state of being you are within your own game.
Yeah.
And remember the thickness of it, the thinness of it, the awareness of all those layers, the ability to somehow navigate through them. All of this comes at play.
Right. Let's say that Emily is cursing me,
Oh, she would love that.
not knowingly, unknowingly, or knowingly. It probably doesn't matter, because my scenario is this. I understand what she's saying, regardless of whether she does. And I consciously, in quotation marks, decide to not receive it. Is that possible?
Yes. Yes, it is possible. Let's say Emily is calling you an asshole, right?
Mhm.
Because in your state of beingness, you're at a place within yourself that you know for a fact that you are not an asshole.
Mhm.
Then she can use that vibration. You're going to bounce it back because you don't define yourself with it.
Mm.
It's not something that you can take. It's something that you will brush off because you are in a state of being that is so solid within this definition that you know it doesn't apply to you. Therefore, you're refusing somehow to let the information shift you because you already digested the information and you already came out with the fact that you are not it.
Right.
But sometimes avatar that are in that state of beingness, if they are, remember time, right? If they are being called this repeatedly, again and again and again and again and again, at one point, they will probably get triggered, not because they know they're an asshole, because they clearly know they are not, but because now they're going to get triggered by the fact that somebody is constantly putting attribute on them that they're refusing, that does not match them, at the repetition of it is becoming fairly annoying to the point that it could trigger anger. So see, you could be breached. Like this is why we mentioned time in VE actually is not a it's not an easy match because it's so intense, because we say everything is vibration. So it's so intense what VE is dealing with that at one point, again and again, over time, it's like, okay, enough. That's it. I'm done. So you got breached.
Right. Is the, I guess, energetic or maybe emotional charge that someone puts behind their word? Because we've now established there's a layer of letters, just
Yes.
letters, not very meaningful, but
Yes.
we give them meaning by agreeing to, right? Meaning.
Yes. Give them meaning by agreeing to what they imply. It's
Yes.
like common agreement. Therefore, when I hear this word, I'm automatically referring to this type of energy, this type of vibration, this type of emotion, or this type of intellectual reference.
Right. So you have the layer of the letters, you have the layer of the meaning, you have the layer of the intention. Also, is there a layer of emotional charge? Like I can throw a word at someone with a lot of emotion behind it. Does it pierce into the inner layers more powerfully because of that?
Of course, it could. Emotions is vibration and movement, right?
Hmm.
Vibration and motion. So therefore, when you have vibration and motion, you're already vibrating, but now you're pushing a movement on it. So the intensity of it is going to get bigger.
Hmm.
Whether it's going to resonate in a positive impact or in a harmful impact to you, it depends. But at least the intensity will get bigger as if you were carrying information without putting any emotion behind it.
Right.
So intention, emotion, all of this will be reinforcing somehow the intensity of the vibration of the information sent. And remember, because your VE will somehow get the signal, if it's too intense, if it's right away loaded with intensity, it will breach.
Hmm.
This is also why emotion has a role to play, because sometimes you want emotion because you want to bridge, because you want to basically consciously interact with the avatar. You don't just want to send stuff to his VE if the avatar is not aware or not able to sense it. You want to make sure that your communication is directed into the avatar to its core so the avatar can understand completely what you're trying to convey. Yes.
Hmm.
So therefore, your intensity needs to match this. And this is why sometimes in children, when a parent is saying something in a certain way, with a certain emotion, with a certain intensity, or a certain intention that is not assertive enough, that is not carrying enough power, enough intensity to breach the the VE of a child that is quite big, right? The parents understand somehow, even if they don't rationally understand, but they do understand that they are not getting through. So they need to put more emotion into it, more intensity into it, to the point the message will be conveyed. Does that make sense?
It does. Yes.
Yes.
And to bring it back to the example we used before, if Emily cursed me, oh my God, I don't
Yeah.
like using
It's
this
all
example, but we have been using it.
yeah.
Okay.
'Cause this is a fair example because this
Right.
is very understandable, right?
Right. Yeah, it is. So we established that I need to understand what she's saying to me for it to have effect, right? Yes. If she used a language that I didn't understand, would it be possible if she put enough emotional charge behind it that would kind of transcend that?
Yes.
Yes.
Because she will talk not into your intellect part.
Hmm.
Let's say she would use a word that you don't understand, but the intention and the emotion put the intensity behind it is so obvious,
Hmm.
right? And her state of being as she's serving you that information is also so palpable, also so obvious that you as in whole, of course, will receive it and that it will breach right through you, and then you will get, even if intellectually the words don't mean a shit to you, it don't means no sense, but you will be witnessing with other aspects of yourself the state of being she is in, the intensity of the emotion or the intention that is behind. You would have the context.
Right.
You would understand the context of this. And therefore, you will get the message, even if the wording is not the wording you would have associate with what she's conveying.
Hmm. Okay.
See, and this is all the ability to communicate with each other, because some people are very good at words. Some people are very good at understanding the reference put behind letters. Some
Hmm.
people are very good using numbers. Some people are very good using just action. Some people are very good using emotions. Some people are very good using context and intention. It really depends. Like you could communicate with each other using different aspect of communication.
Hmm.
And it's also because you're made of so many different layers that this work. Because if you are made of one layer, that will be, let's say, intellectual, right? No emotional layers, no, well, we can keep the physical layer, but no emotional layers, no VE layer, and no
Mm,
intuition. Let's throw intuition in the mix, right?
mhm.
So you have none of this. All you have is intellect and physical, right?
Oh, okay.
Okay. So if somebody was trying to communicate to you, they could only use words that you two agree on the definition, right?
Mhm.
Only one language that you two would recognize, or actions, meaning if I'm mad at you, I could slap the heck out of you and you would understand the message, correct?
Right.
If I'm in love with you, I would kiss you and you would understand the message. If you need to understand what the matter is about, I would rephrase, I would make paragraph about it, and then because we agreed, we speak the same language, we're being brought with the same definition behind those letters or behind those numbers or whatsoever, you would understand it intellectually. But you would not be able to communicate with, let's say, someone that cannot use words and someone that can only speak through emotions or someone that can only speak through, let's say, a gesture
Mm.
because you will not be able to decode it. So it would somehow restrict your possibility of communicating with other fellows avatar. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah, it makes
The same way as if you're somebody that is not paying no mind to nature or to the elements uh that you see in your surrounding and you're based only on intellectual aspect, then you will not be able to somehow exchange with your surrounding. You will not be able to communicate with nature. You will not be able to share moments because nature can talk. So for you, it will be like,
Mhm.
no interest. I had no clue what it's trying to tell me. I'm not even knowing it's trying to tell me anything.
Right.
So this is why all of those aspects of self within this game are very important because it's also what allows you to stay connected not only to the game, not only to yourself, but to each other somehow.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I assume everything we talked about in the context of cursing, it also applies to blessing, right? We could turn
Yes.
this around and yeah.
Same. Is the same. Let's take a blessing, let's take a prayer because this could be controversial. You know, some people will tell you, I don't believe in prayer. To me, it resonates blank. Yes, because what they put behind the prayer is prayer means religious. Prayer means I have to have this background of belief in the certain, religion or a certain story, let's say. Other will say, oh, I love prayers because they will associate it to not religion or maybe religion if they believe into it and it will be
Right.
perfectly aligned with their belief, or they will associate it to this is just a way to send good vibration out and communicate with the rest of the game in order to say, I'm trying to get there, or thank you for this, everything you can put in a prayer. So basically, those will be beautiful words with beautiful intention to start with, but it could be interpreted as a very negative, what Mark, or very heavy situation that would be the complete opposite of what's been intended at its reception just because of what's being put behind it. This is constantly with the game of Earth in playtime, and because of languages, it's constantly a matter of reference. What do you put behind words? And it's true for everything. What do you put behind your actions? What is your intention? What do you put behind this situation? What emotions are lingering there? Like basically it's what you're trying to carry is what's in the bag. It's not the bag. Does
Mhm.
that make sense?
It does.
And sometimes because of the mental layer and because of the ego part of it, especially since we are attached and we are, brought to this game with definitions, with bags, with certain colors of bags, certain texture, certain size of bags, then some people will stop at this aspect and will disregard what's inside. Some people will receive the bag and decide the bag is ugly and won't even dare to look what's inside. And sometimes inside will be gold or gem or something beautiful, but because it's so ugly, they'll be like, no, this disgusts me. I don't want to touch it. Okay.
Right.
So all of this, it needs to be really understood and taken into consideration. And because you're all so unique in this game and in the way you're playing and in the way this game has influenced you, you are also unique in the way you're receiving information and the way you're digesting, integrating, and putting right back out. So this is why we started this project, we believe in earlier conversation, explaining that it's good to be good. It's, let's say, helpful in the game to accept that everybody is playing a different game and therefore is playing with different tools and therefore is not necessarily receiving or sending information the way we will digest it.
Yeah, that's a good reminder. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Two questions came up.
Yes.
One of them was still connected to the communication aspect regarding what we call spelling, because that's an interesting concept that I think more and more people are becoming aware of, that what we say is actually a form of magical action, right? Because we've already established that it has an effect on the different layers of the receiver. So the meaning we attach to certain words, it kind of has a magical effect in a way, or a vibrational effect, right? We should say.
Yes.
What if,
Magic is vibration, so you could combine both. It's okay.
right,
In our frame of reference, we understand what you're conveying.
right. Okay, that's good. I think what's very good is to establish, as we have done, that the recipient is very powerful as well in this collaboration, right?
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't stick to something that the recipient believes or understands, then it doesn't really have as much power.
Yes.
Hmm. My question actually is, what if a word has like a double meaning? Because, for example, I know that some people feel the greeting good morning is controversial because morning has a second meaning in the English language, meaning being sad or
Yeah.
having lost something. And so some people refrain from saying that because they say it's like a magic spell, wishing someone an experience that is not nice, you know? Or weekend. Some people don't use that term because it implies like a weak time, like a negative time in a way. But is that really the case if the mental layer maybe interprets it in the more mainstream meaning? You know what I'm trying to say?
Yes. Yeah, we do know what you're trying to say. Well, let's say 3 situation, right? 2 people are talking about the weekend. People A and people B, right?
Right.
Weekend for them means weekend, end of the week, nothing else.
Neutral.
Okay?
Hmm.
Mutual. It's a mutual. Okay. So they're in an understanding. There is no issue with it. Now, A or B, A receiving, B mentioning the weekend. A believes that weekend means week end, something that is not strong. Okay. And B having no idea that this is how it's going to be received. This could have a very, like, let's say, surprising impact from B saying weekend to A because their intention was, hey, enjoy your weekend. Okay.
Right.
And Air being like, "Oh, effer, why are you saying this to me? Like, like this is not gonna be the weak point of my week. It's gonna be amazing."
Yeah.
So this, yes, you could have a misunderstanding in the giving and the receiving of the information is because they disagree on the reference. If if A is honest, right, with itself and see the context that B sent, have a good weekend,
Mhm.
right? They know that it's been sent with joy, love, wishing something pleasant, something that was not at all attacking, right? But now their intellectual or their ego aspect that wants to be sent information their way, that doesn't want to regard the context, that want other avatar to play their rules, to play their way, and therefore to interact the way they want. You see? So they are in control. They will disregard the context. Just hop on the possibility of showing up a little, or maybe tell the other one, well, for me, this is like this. They could say it very nicely because if they do recognize the context, they can say, oh, I appreciate this. Thank you for your greeting, but I have to admit that for me, weekend refers to this, which would be very constructive. because
Right.
first of all, they are sharing two perspectives on the word,
Mm.
right? Because A is going to acknowledge the context, so it's not going to get brushed off in an unpleasant way. It's just going to understand that it's been delivered the way B was delivering it, but it's going to, let's say, broaden the spectrum of B by telling them it could have a different meaning. Very constructive interaction. The ego is dancing quite nicely with the rest of stuff. Yeah.
Right.
Now, when it's the other one and it's being taken almost an attack or responded, receive it and send back with an attack saying, "Oh, why you saying this to me? Da, 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 da. You had no idea, da, 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 da," and all the stuff that sometimes come up. If A is honest, it's because they were unable to acknowledge the context it was given because they were somehow blinded with their own definition, own perspective of it, and therefore the exchange will not be constructive because they are not playing along, because they refuse to accept the other's perspective at the moment. And instead of teaching, instead of somehow taking the information, digesting and bringing back out in a constructive manner,
Hmm.
they decided to go in a disruptive way. And it's okay. But because you have to own, it's your own responsibility, you have to own your choices. If they never interact with B again, or A again, we forgot who gave the grading, but anyway, they never interact with who gave the grading again, they cannot complain about it, right? And if the other person never learned that this could be a definition of weekend, they cannot complain about it either. They cannot go and rumble and say, well, people have no idea that this means this and this. No, they can't. They can't complain because if you're not teaching that aspect, if you're not bringing your perspective forward in a manner that will be understood without attacking or without being defensive of it, and you cannot complain about it because it's your choice. Therefore, you have to own your choices and take your responsibility, right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
So that's one. And now you revert it.
Hmm.
The one saying happy weekend, well, most of the time, if somebody saying happy weekend has this definition of it, they're most likely not gonna say it unless it's to mess up with the other one. Do we need to go through that example? Or are we good?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. So yeah, so see, this is where ego could be tricky. Where looking behind and really trying to open up to your bigger self and therefore your VE layer somehow will be able to sense what's behind the envelope, what's
Right.
in the
Yeah.
and some people decide to play that Earthian game without ever, 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 ever being willing to look in the bag. All they want is pretty bags. And only when they have pretty bags, they will open. And then if shit is in the bag, they will complain about it. And then they will say, oh, well, we never been brought anything else. And then they would not even hear yes, you have been brought a lot of bags. You just decided to take only those ones because they were pretty to you. This is where the choices of how you play your own game is important. But once you decide it, you can never, never, never not own it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
You're
I think
welcome.
I think we hit on a couple of important aspects here regarding communication and perspective. In
Perspective is key in
Yeah.
this art in playtime.
Right.
And sharing and accepting the existence of other perspective than your own is double key.
Right. Yeah, those examples, they really brought that home, that realization, how complex the interaction of different avatars and all their perspectives and understandings is or can be.
This is why this game is fantastic.
There was one more thing. We don't have a lot of time left, but maybe we can brush it briefly.
Okay.
All the examples we used today, they were set in a context of immediate interaction, like physical vicinity. What role or impact has energy sent towards another person or avatar that is maybe not in the same location? Let's say, for example, I live in a different country than my parent, and I want to send them positive energy or healing or love. Does this actually go into their VE as well?
Yes,
Mhm.
yes. Because your intention carries vibration. Your love that you're sending, that you're projecting right? The information that you integrated or digested is I love my parents. And what you're going to put back out is I want somehow for them to feel that love. You could do it directly, which is the easiest because it will involve all the layers of the avatar, and therefore it will be very much easy to understand and feel and grasp the context right away. But you could also intend or send your thoughts or your emotions or your love or your intention with a distance. Vibrations will carry. The only difference is it will reach their VE and it will shift it somehow. If they are not in tune with that, remember, they will not necessarily feel or know the shift. They will not necessarily consciously receive it unless you're telling them over the phone. But if you're just, let's say, you're in your bedroom, your parents are sleeping, and you're sending loads of love to them, right?
Mm.
Vibration will carry through, meaning somehow you will alter them without them knowing. Maybe in the morning they will wake up and they will be like, oh, we sleep so good. Oh, we had such a good night. We need to call Mario today because they will be thinking about you. But they will have no idea consciously, oh, Mario send us some love. But sometimes when you have avatar that are fine-tuned within their VE layered, they would feel at the distance whatever is sent to them. And they will know when someone is talking about them. They would feel when somebody is wishing them ill, somebody is wishing them well. They will feel when some of their loved one is having a problem or a bad situation or a bad emotion or good emotion. They will actually be sensitive enough to capture the signal before it breaches. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. Yes.
So, yes to your answer. It will carry through. But the question you need to ask is, what are you expecting doing that? Because if you're expecting, I just want to send my love so their VE can capture it and somehow I can just shift and put some good energy and loving vibration into
Mm.
them and I'm fine with it. I'm not expecting anything. But if you're expecting, I want to send them love because I want them to feel love. I want them to know they're loved. I want them to consciously receive it and I want to make their day better just because I'm sending my love, then you most likely will have to do it in a way that is direct and in a way that you take the phone or email or do something that they would for sure, get the memo.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And the last question for today, it's just a small follow-up question. What you were just describing, is that also happening when, let's say, someone receives a phone call from a good friend and they connect and then the receiver says, "Oh my God, I was just thinking about you." Is that also like a piercing of the VE? So
Yes, because everything is interconnected, right? So let's say you and Emily live at the distance, and this day, you're thinking strongly of Emily. So you're already somehow sending vibration of thinking strongly of you, right?
Mhm.
And her VE will take it, and for some reason, she'll start thinking of you and say, I need to call Mario. Then boom, because somehow you were matching vibration, and the VE took the information and accepted it and was like, boom, let's do it.
Right.
And it happens a lot because you are connected. It doesn't matter if you're physically connected or not. You are connected within this game. Let's say your avatar, we're talking right now about the energy level of your beingness, right? So the whole you and Emily, whole her within the avatar. So all layers included, right? And your player self as well. Because all this evolving in Earthen realm right now, if you consciously decided that there is a good match energetically between your two avatars, so you are willing to somehow consciously play the game together, right? That means you are willing to be in each other's life some way or another.
Right.
You're already accepting to make that game together. Then whatever you're going to send will be probably easily received by the other and will breach way easily in
Mhm.
terms of energy,
Mhm.
right? Energetically speaking, whatever you're going to send it is probably being heard more loudly. And if the avatars in question are aware of their metaphysical aspects, per se, then it will be even more potent because they will be more in tune than the average on that layer. So, on their vibrational aspect, so on the energy that they are, and therefore they will capture the message prior.
Yeah.
So you will have like different way of doing this, but we could push it too, if we may. When you have like sometimes like a healing process or what you call like alternative medicine or energy work that is done at the distance, right? Why is it working? It is working because you have on one end the person receiving that knows, so mentally, emotionally, and physically, they know that that day they're about to receive energy, right?
Right.
And you have the one sending that is knowing that the receiver knows, and they are sending energies on that day, same day as the receiver knows. So therefore, basically everything, the context, the setup, even if it's at the distance, every layer of the avatars are aware that there is an exchange of energies happening, correct?
Yeah.
And because they are aware of this, and because they are aware it's an energy exchange, and it's not gonna be I'm touching you, I'm telling you, or I'm wording or whatever. It's gonna be energy, so vibrations. Then they are looking and they are paying a close attention to any shift.
Right.
You see where we're going with that?
Yeah.
That will then happen, of course, on their vibrational layer, on their PE, but that would therefore, because it's been expected somehow, be recognized more easily and then brought back into the rest of the avatar because there was an awareness of it. Context, Morgan, like when it comes to communication and to energy exchange and to vibrations being affecting players, not player avatars, all of this, and even us, because we're just energy, that's how we function. But you guys, everything is context. Everything is a degree of awareness because all your layers are linked with each other. And this is why when you ask the question, how can someone tune to their V layer, to their vibrational layer, then the answer will be just being aware of its existence is already doing the work. Because now, if you know something exists, you're going to be on the lookout somehow, and you're going to be listening, and you're going to be very much paying more attention. Yes?
Yes. Thank you for bringing it back to that,
You're
that
welcome.
aspect. And I believe this is a great opportunity to conclude for today. There are so many questions that I have, but I will write them down and we'll talk about them next time.
Sounds good to us.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
You're very welcome.
And it was, as always, a pleasure to talk to all of you, but specifically the two aspects of you, right, that came through
Yes,
today.
yes. You got what you call newbies at first.
Yes.
Because remember, this is also somehow serving us, right? So we do have to take that opportunity as well,
Of course.
in order to somehow train, if we may use that word, or at least have that experience that is not quite like, let's say, casual. Unfortunately, it's not that often.
Well, it's a pleasure to talk to all of you.
Pleasure shared.
All right. Then I will say until next time, Rufus.
Sounds good to us.
All right. And with this, we thank Rufus and all the other energies involved today for the information and support they have given us. With much love and deep gratitude, we're asking all energies and entities to recede to where they belong. Have you ever wanted to work with higher dimensional beings yourself? Then why not join my Transformative Soul Journeys Quantum Hypnosis training? In 4 clear, easy-to-follow modules, you will learn how to guide deep explorations filled with clarity, insight, and guidance for others. For more information, visit thesouljourneys.com.